Cool.
So yeah. Okay, so Travis, can you tell us a little bit about young Travis, like way back in the day?
Yeah, so my name's Travis Ellison. I'm originally from Alexandria, Virginia. I lived there my whole life up until 2016. So I went to school, I played sports, I did some music, and just normal kid things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really didn't do too much with photography that young, but there was like one thing that I'll get into later that I did, and it was cool to look back on. But yeah, so basically, I played sports growing up.
Yeah.
I have one older brother, and yeah, that was about it.
Nice. So when you kind of mentioned like you really never dabbled in photography, which is obviously what you do now full time, did you ever kind of think as a kid like, oh, I like to take pictures, or I'm into like being creative in different ways? Did that ever happen when you were a kid? Did you kind of notice that?
Yeah, so like at family events and just things like that around my family, there'd always be a camera out, and I was interested in technology. And so I just thought it was so cool to be able to take a device, take photos on it, and then like go to the store and get them developed and like get the film developed into photos. I really didn't know what I was doing, but it was just fun to do, and I like hands-on type of activities. So it was cool. Yeah.
Back in the day, we used to like take disposable cameras everywhere with us and then like, take them to Walmart and get them developed.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It was so good. It's kind of crazy to like think of how everything's so instant now with photography, and how back then we usually were like, well, gotta wait till we get the stuff back from Walmart.
Right, exactly. Yes. And that's another thing, like today's world, especially working in professional sports, like everybody wants everything so quick. So it's come full circle for sure. Like
right. Dabbling in that. Yeah, dabbling in that, and now like you're working with probably some of the best cameras there are out there. But did you ever, when you were a kid, like I always ask people this on the show because I find it's really interesting to hear people's answer, but was there ever a moment like maybe growing up that you were kind of like I want to like do more with this or pursue more? Because some people have that one moment where it's like, this is what I want to do, but some people are kind of just like, no, I just kind of fell into it. I don't know how that was for you.
Right. So when I was younger, I didn't really realize it could be a career path.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I got into college that I realized, like, hey, one, I'm kind of good at this and I can learn to get better, but I can really like make this my career. So it wasn't until college that I realized that. When I was younger, I just did it for fun and didn't think twice about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned you went to college, and is this where kind of, did you originally go into college for photography, or were you in college for something else?
No. So oddly enough, my senior year of high school was the first time I had the courage to step out and like do a music performance. So we had a we had a talent show.
Yeah.
I sang for the first time in front of people, like technically by myself. It was me and one other guy. I had been in choir growing up, but that was always a group thing. So to do that, like pretty much on my own, was like, it was a wake up call. And I thought music is everything I want to do.
Yeah.
I did community college for 2 years, and it was all music. Like everything I wanted to do was music.
Nice.
And I ended up purchasing a camera because of that. So I shot like a music video on my iPhone.
Yeah.
And with one of my friends on campus. And then from there, we were like, well, if we buy a camera, then we can do photo shoots, we can do music videos, and that can help support our music business.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I bought a camera in the first place. But around that time is when I transferred to VCU. And once I transferred there was sports on campus. There was also concerts and open mics and protests and everything. So I had a camera and I just went for it and did everything I could.
That's awesome. It's always really interesting too when I talk to people, like we're creative in one way, but like like literally 99% of the time, people are also creative in other ways. And you guys, after this, you have to follow Travis on Instagram because he sings a lot in his stories and your voice is killer.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I was like, dang, he takes pictures, works for a sports team, and can sing. Like, what is this?
Appreciate it.
But that's really cool how like kind of one creative avenue led you into another. Is this music video anywhere we can find? I need to know.
If it was, I wouldn't tell you. How about that?
Oh my God. No, it'd be like the first ever like time you worked with a camera, which is kind of funny to think of.
Yeah.
But so where did that take you from there? Obviously, that was that introduction. You said you started photographing things. Is that where your mind kind of switched and said, I want to do this as a career?
Right. So it was a struggle. Like when I was in community college, I was still focused on music and sports. So I played lacrosse while I was in community college, and that was from 2011 to 2013. And then, I did my 2 years there, so I had to transfer. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I wasn't sure. And I ended up transferring to VCU where they had a lacrosse team, but it was a club team. So they wanted to be involved in sports, but I knew I had to get my education.
Yeah.
And I just had to face facts. So I ended up still doing sports. So like I was on the our VCU women's basketball practice team.
Nice.
So like they practiced against the guys. So I was a part of that. And I also took photos for them. I started working with a student organization called Rams Review. I started working with the school like content team, which is called VCU Athletics. So they would shoot interviews. They would shoot. So at this time I was doing video and photo.
Right.
And so it would be interviews. It would be like workout sessions with the players.
Mm-hmm.
It would be like live action cam during the games.
Yeah.
I got like a well-rounded experience from the study side, but also I would go out and shoot concerts on my own. I would shoot open mics and just apply for internships and so forth.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, so is this kind of where sports and photography, like obviously you said you were always involved in sports growing up, and then it kind of happened when you were in college. Is this kind of where the sports and photography, like your two loves met?
Right. Yeah. This is where I figured out I can't play the sport at a high level anymore as far as like continuing to grow in my career with that. So this is a way to still be involved and still do something I'm enjoying and be like a part of the team basically. So that's definitely where they met and they continued to grow from there.
Right. And that's really cool to think of because I know a lot of people want to get into sports, me included, me included when I got my job. I had absolutely no experience with sports teams or working with sports teams. I mean, I'm a sports fan, but that's as far as that went. And it's kind of cool that you were able to get that experience a little bit under your belt. Because I know like there's huge difference between professional and college sports, but it's still, they share a lot of similarities, and college is like the best place to kind of dip your toes into those things.
Yeah, I can add that a good friend of mine, his name's Wilson Tarpey Jr., he has a sports outlet called My Mind on Sports. And when I was in college, he actually gave me the opportunity to work with him. He was kind of growing his business, and I had a camera, and we used to play basketball like back in the day, pick up basketball together. And he's like maybe 5 to 10 years older than me. In touch, and we've always been friends. And so when he started this company, he's like, hey, I know you have a camera. I know you like to do photography. If you're interested in doing anything with us, like let me know. So I was able to cover the WNBA. I was able to cover Team USA women's basketball, the soccer team in DC, DC United, a little bit of Wizards stuff. So I got a great amount of experience through working with him, learning the ropes. And there was no pressure on me. It was just like, whatever you can contribute, we're happy to have it. And it's always been that way. And when I can reach back and continue to help him out and just support, I always do that. So
yeah, that's amazing. And I think like they always say like in the creative world, and I feel like especially in sports, like knowing somebody, making those connections with people, and then like those connections may go somewhere else, and that actually like your pickup basketball game every once in a while turned into like something that helped you progress your career, which is awesome.
Right.
That's so when you were in college, like you were growing this, you kind of mentioned you started doing concerts and stuff like that. Now that is such a, like to me, content wise, it's such a sparse difference. But when I really think about it, they share a lot of similarities. Can you talk a little bit like why you did sports, but also wanted to photograph. Again, like you're merging your loves for music and photography. How did that come about?
Yeah, so honestly, my love for music is still within me, as you can see on Instagram. um, Another vision I had was, okay, if I don't want to be in front of the camera and like on the mic and so forth, what I wanted to do first was be able to contribute to another artist as a photographer or videographer. That way I can learn from them while they're, in front of the camera and they're either in the studio recording or on stage performing.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn from them while I'm actually contributing, because it can be kind of a competition if I go to them and say, hey, I'm a singer too, like, put me on a song or something like that.
Yeah.
If I can come to them and say like, hey, I'd like to take photos for you, and never even mention that I do music.
Mm-hmm.
My type of interpretation or how I thought about it was, if I work with them enough as a photographer and they like my work and so forth, I'm already gaining this knowledge from just being around them.
Yeah.
It may be a special opportunity where I can mention, hey, I do a little bit of music too. Can I help you in other ways, or can you actually help me? So that's another reason why I got into music.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think too, I feel like a lot of times, I know a lot of people or talk to people who have worked in the sports industry, and they said, oh, I've known my whole life. Like, I went to college and I was like, I'm going to work for this team, or I just in sports in general. Was that something that you thought would take you beyond college, or were you just kind of like, if I can do this on the side and like just kind of get a regular like photography job, that's cool too?
No, once I set my mind on it, it was set. Like, yeah. I saw the light and I saw what I needed to do to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it would happen this quick, because like right after college, it was about 6 months of application after application, and then I got an opportunity. It wasn't easy getting that, but I always had in my mindset, I kept a positive mindset, and I never limited myself. When people ask me, where do you see yourself in 5 years, or where do you see yourself in the future? I would always say, I want to travel. I want to be involved in sports and entertainment, and, just continue to do what I enjoy. So I just stuck to those things and kept working towards them, and I've landed where I am now.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. You are a photographer for the Minnesota Vikings, which I have to take this moment to say, the Eagles did beat you in the playoffs in our hometown.
I think we're breaking out. I can't hear you. Finish this later. I can't hear you.
I'll bring that up real quick.
Yeah, I was at that game.
I honestly, I can't imagine like now being involved in a sports team and seeing like, I don't work directly as close to the team as you do, but just like being a part of an organization when your team loses, like, man, you feel it. You kind of like, geez, like you feel kind of respond in a weird way. And it's just kind of crazy. But yeah, so you landed a job with the Minnesota Vikings, which first off is just amazing. I mean, if you've never been in sports, it's competitive. There's a million people that want to have a job for a professional sports team. So like, how was that like for you? You said you kept applying and you really never gave up on your dreams. So what was that like when that happened?
Right. So I can give you a couple like key moments that happened. Yeah. Once I graduated, I stayed around school and I continued to work with VCU Athletics.
Yeah.
I try to do any type of freelance work I could do on the side and still try to make money and make connections. A lot of things I did for free as well, but basically just continue to build my portfolio, continue to build my craft, and continue to build connections. As I was applying, one of the websites I always relay people to is teamworkonline.com. And there's so many different sports opportunities, like sports jobs on that website. So I always tell people to go on there. And so I applied to 50 to 60, like not even lying, like 50 to 60 places.
Wow.
In a month or so. But then it took like 6 months before I got a solid opportunity.
Yeah.
So a couple of things that happened. I got an interview with Enterprise, right? And so I went to Enterprise. My whole resume was sports related.
Yeah.
I got my degree in broadcast journalism, mass communications, but all of my like portfolio work and resume was sports related.
Right.
So I was in the interview and the lady was saying, hey, like your resume is great, but it's all sports related. And I can tell that you really, you want to do that. Like that's your passion. And she's like, just be honest. Like, if that's really what you want to do, you're still young. I would say do that. You know, I could put you to the next level and you could have an opportunity at this job, but it doesn't seem like that's what you want to do. So go for that. So
man,
yeah.
Enterprise.
yeah. So yeah, I could have been working at Enterprise, and nothing wrong with that. You know, it's still been a chance to learn and build connections. But
yeah.
So that was the first thing. Second thing was Team USA. I think it was lacrosse. I got on a phone call with them and I did some interview stuff. Another thing I was honest. I was confident in myself, but that opportunity was through video. And so I knew I wasn't that good at video, as good as I was in photography.
Yeah.
So I was honest about it because the job was going to be a lot of editing and so forth. And it was a job. It wasn't an internship. So I was just honest and I told them the truth, and they ended up going with somebody else. And I just had to bite the bullet and accept that. And then long story short, what ended up happening was I got an opportunity with the Seattle Seahawks, and it was a video internship, but I didn't get that. Then it became a public relations internship for just the summer. So I was only supposed to be there like 3 weeks. And give me 1 second. And so I was supposed to be there like 3 weeks and ended up turning into a full-time internship. The person that had the video job they left, so I got to transfer right over into video.
Nice.
So that whole year. Then the following year, I got the internship with the Vikings. So
wow. And that's like, so that's just crazy, like how one thing leads to another. But like, it's really good to hear, like, it's really hard to get discouraged. And I feel like in the society we live in today, like we were just talking about, everything is so instant, you want it now. But like a lot of people like have to realize you have to put like your time in. It's like very few people just get it right out of the gate. And especially for something like sports, where everybody and their mom is applying to the job, even if they're not qualified. So it's like you got to put in your time and your work. And if you do, then that's when those opportunities are going to come to you. There are a few lucky few out there that somehow magically like made it in without having to do very little work. Like I had to work at a crappy small marketing firm for like 4 years before I even got the opportunity to work in sports. But is it like everything? I feel like people think like, oh, working for a pro sports team must be amazing. Like, oh, you must just like hang out with the players on the weekends and like chill and do nothing. And it's really not that. There's a lot more to it. So like, how was that when you first like got into that world and realized like, man, not everything is rainbows and bunny rabbits here?
Right. I tell people all the time, it has to be a passion of yours. Like this can be a 9 to 5. I call it like a glorified 9 to 5.
Yeah.
If it's not what you actually enjoy and what you love, because at the end of the day, it's not what you want to do. If that's not what you want to do.
Yeah.
And it can look glamorous, like you said, from the outside looking in. There's always people DMing me asking, one, how I got the job, and two, like, oh, that's got to be like the best job ever. That's a dream job. And I said, like, yeah, it's a dream job, but it's because I really enjoy what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Not necessarily just because of the status of it, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it was challenging. Like I said, I started in PR.
Yeah.
And that's completely opposite of, the mass communication side where you're actually creating the media versus like patrolling the media from the PR side.
Yeah.
So just learning that side of the thing, like everything was difficult.
Yeah.
It was a struggle. And then I was doing video when I knew I wanted to do photography at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So that was another struggle because I was shooting video and I couldn't take photos during games and stuff. So it's like, how can I capture these moments and keep them? Because like video content, you really can't publish as much as you can do with photo.
Right.
So that was another challenge. But and like what I do now isn't just photography. I manage the whole photography asset. So I'm the photography manager, or coordinator. So everything that we take photos of, I'm adding metadata to that. And so it can be organized and we can always find it in our database. So
right. So sorry, Travis. Let me just jump in for people who don't know what metadata is. It is basically think of like a file of information that's attached to every photo. This includes like when the photo was taken, by who, on what. and then you can add a bunch of stuff to that. And for sports teams, it's really, really, really crucial because you don't have the right words in there when a team goes to search for a photo. Like they need a photo of this player at this game at this moment. It's really hard to like find those things, and it's so crucial. And like you can attest to this, when you're shooting, you're taking thousands of photos. So like what Travis does is super time consuming, but also just incredibly important.
And yeah, and mind you, like that's thousands of photos from me, but on our home games, we have like 5 to 7 photographers that are working with our team.
Jesus.
So, and keep in mind also, it's not just on-field photos. So we're taking photos of fans, we're taking photos outside at tailgating areas, and different sponsorship activations. So all of that stuff has to get metadata attached to it for its specific needs. So it's a lot of different photos, and we have to, well, I'm really like the one that at the end of the day gets all of that. So
I mean, God bless. I can't.
Yeah.
I've gone through our like stream after a game, and I'm like, yep, okay, I'm over this. I'll wait till they tag these, and then I'll get them later.
Right.
So it's like kudos to you, because that's a lot of work.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So like can you explain to us a little like what, so obviously it's a little different for every sport, but what a typical weekend is like for you? Because that's really when it's like, I mean, obviously you go to practice and stuff like that and take photos there, but the weekend, the game day is like go time. So what is that kind of like for you?
Yeah, so we usually get to the stadium about 3 hours before kickoff. So by the time we get there, we kind of quickly chat with the rest of the group of photographers. We'll put all our gear on, and then everybody will go their separate ways. So we have a shot list that we'll go by. And our team photographer, Andy, he pretty much dictates who's doing what on game day. Most of the time for home game, it's the same, and away game, it's the same. There'll be things that get added in and so forth, but fans get in there, I think, an hour and a half before you start the kickoff. And like the hours can either go by really quick or like really slow.
Yeah.
And like I remember like our home opener, it was pretty quick. Like it was surprisingly pretty quick.
Yeah.
But it's not always like that. Sometimes it feels like we're waiting around forever.
Yeah.
Game starts and we're shooting the whole game. Thankfully our stadium's indoors at US Bank Stadium. So that's a blessing, because if it was, middle of the winter time and we're outside, we only have to worry about that when we're on the road. So
yeah, I know. Yeah, that I didn't even think about that actually.
Yeah.
Like, because obviously football starts like, it's nice in the beginning, miserable in the middle of the season, depending where you are.
Right.
A little bit better at the end of it. But I mean, what is it? Obviously, like sports and just working in sports, especially when you're involved in-game situations, it is fast and high speed. And especially with social media being such a huge component now, a lot of people, I'm sure, as you're a photographer, you take pictures, they need them, especially there's a huge play that just happened, they need them that instant. What is it like working in that incredibly fast-paced and kind of high-pressure environment? Like you said, you have many photographers, but you don't want to miss that shot that's going to make it on ESPN later.
Right. Yeah, for me, I think I take a different approach to some people. I try not to let it be a pressure situation. I just see it as like something like take this time and enjoy it and just focus. So of course I'm not gonna just be like lollygagging around, but I focus in on it and I just do my best to capture as many images as I can and like the best images. But at the same time, I know we have a team, and hopefully if I don't get it, that somebody else did. But I try to get it myself. But
right.
I try not to get too down on myself if I do miss a play. I just believe, what's for you will happen, and I just don't let it pressure me. But it can be pressuring though.
Yeah, I can't, like, obviously I work in baseball and it's a lot slower than football. But I mean, what is probably your favorite part about working, I mean, in the NFL specifically? I know it's a tough question.
I think it gives us a platform, honestly. like my Instagram has grown a lot since I've been in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised enough, like how you said, like what I do on my Instagram stories and stuff. And sometimes I just, speak positively in on my stories and so forth. It doesn't always have to be photography driven.
Yeah.
People kind of like have taken on to just wanting to know about me and my story. So that platform is something that I don't take lightly, and I appreciate that opportunity. So that's probably the best part about it. And of course, like, the games and just being like you're at where everybody wishes they were and you're part of. So it's something I do appreciate for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, when I watch a football game, even when I'm at one, I'm like in it. Like, I am heart and soul in it. And when something happens, I'm jumping up and down, yelling at refs. I thought to myself the other day, man, I don't know if I'd be able to control myself on the field. Like, obviously you can react, but not like in a way of a fan. And I can't imagine kind of fighting that while you're trying to concentrate because you're working, but also like you work for this team that you want them to win, you want them to succeed, and when things go that way or don't go that way, do you find it like, I'm not sure how that is like as being on the field in it?
Well, it's interesting because I think it transfers over into like regular life, which is kind of scary because like people I talk to and people I know, like they start to say like, you never get excited for anything and so forth. Because I'll give you an example, like my internship year, I was there for the Minneapolis Miracle. And like I got one of the shots of Diggs catching the ball. He ran right by me on the sideline and scored, right?
What?
And like, so that whole time, I'm really not reacting. Like,
right.
And one reason because I saw a flag get thrown, so I didn't know if it was going to come back and like we weren't going to win.
Right.
But I think I got so focused in that moment that like I don't think have felt the full excitement of that moment because I had to be so subdued and just like capture what was happening.
Right.
So yeah, it was like that's probably the biggest moment I've been a part of, and I just had to stay calm.
I can't imagine like having to. I feel like I would constantly have to like snap myself out and be like, like look, watch the game through your lens. don't watch it like holding the camera this way and staring at the play that way. That's crazy. Do you what is something like, I mean, like we talked, not every job, even though it seems like a dream job, is like the best every day. What is something that's like probably, I don't want to say the worst, but what's something that isn't so great about the quote unquote dream job?
I think I'll say the challenge of doing what's best for the team versus doing what's best for you or just what you'd want to do. People don't understand the fact that it's not about us. It's about the team, and it's to protect the team and like do what's best for the team. So if you know insider information, like you can't explain that or talk to anybody with that. But just on the fact of like when I was an intern and doing public relations and then doing video, like I wanted to do something else, but I had to sit and focus on what I was actually doing at that moment.
Yeah,
like that is so competitive to be inside and be on the inside. Like you have to do your part to make everything work. So like the metadata part, like that's not something I really enjoy. I appreciate it after it's done because I know people can really use that. And so you have to figure out what you're doing and why it's important, and then let that be what drives you.
So. Yeah. Oh, such good advice. Such good advice. So we talked about like your favorite part of the NFL. What is obviously you shoot more than just sports. You shoot recently, oh my gosh, I have to remember. You were at some festivals. Yeah. And who were you shooting? Can you name some of the artists?
Lil Nas X. Goodness, you put me on the spot.
I'm sorry.
DMX, Doja Cat, Boz. Who else? Run the Jewels.
Yeah.
Sway in the Morning was hosting.
Which
is a lot of artists there. Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's another amazing opportunity that a lot of people would kill for. So like you do these two things, like, so what is your favorite part probably of just being a photographer?
I think my favorite part is just being involved, being there, and being able to capture things that one people can appreciate, but also I'm able to look back like years down the line, and I was there to actually capture photos to show people. So like when I look at documentaries and things like that, like the photos we see, somebody had to take those.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much like placing yourself in history by being there and capturing moments. Like people think of it for the now, but there's also, 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now that your photos could be part of telling history. So I think that's pretty cool to look at and appreciate being a part of.
That is so cool. Yeah, I always like I'm not anywhere near the level you are when it comes to a photographer, but I think that's why I love photography so much. It's like I constantly find myself, I have a feeling that's why I'm addicted to Instagram. I'm like, I constantly go back and look at like old memories just to remember things, but it's also just really cool how you can, especially in sports, like these moments mean so much to so many people. And the fact that you get to capture those moments and keep them still in time so people can go back and revisit them is like, I think one of the coolest things to have as a job.
Yeah, absolutely. And like some of the comments I've got throughout my posts on Instagram have kind of been like eye openers for me, because I really don't realize it sometimes. Like this is the only way people are seeing some of the content that's being created around the team. And so to be able to share that and people to appreciate it, it's like, I'm really thankful for the opportunity.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And like it's sometimes I think like, we're in it, so it's just our everyday. We're kind of going through the motions sometimes, but then like it takes those little moments where people are like appreciating your work to realize like, oh, this is actually more than I think it is some days. And but that's really, I think that's just so cool. So one last thing for you, and what we'll end on is, what advice would you have for creatives, whether it's photographers or designers or whoever, who want to get into the sports business?
One thing I always say is it doesn't matter what level you're at, like as far as shooting wise, whether I tell people, whether you're taking photos at a playground, little league football or basketball or softball, high school, any level, if you're trying to be a creative, you can create at any level. And it's not about the, the platform of the league that you're shooting or whatever. It's about what you bring to it. So, like there's so many opportunities out here. You don't have to start in the NFL or in the NBA or in the MLB. Like you can start at your local high school or at your local park and start creating. So it's important to just create, stay original, and keep networking and just keep going. Like just don't give up.
Yeah. I think that's so important. And like we talked, it's so easy to get discouraged, but like the harder you work and the more you just keep hustling and going for it, like good things will come to you eventually. And you're obviously a testament of that.
Yeah. And I'll just add another thing, like positive self-talk is very important. People shut themselves down before they even start, because they're like, oh, like for example, oh, it's hard to get in the NFL, right? It's competitive. But for you to say I'll never get there, you're right. You're not going to get there if you say that.
Yeah.
So you have to speak positively about your situation and just continue to pump in positivity into your mind and to the people around you, because that's what's the most important, to keep going.
Words have power, dude. I always say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
My coworker said, "You're getting sick." And I said, "No, do not speak those words over me."
Right. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Well, Travis, thank you so much for coming on. I'll give everybody your information, where to follow you and find you and see your photos and listen to your awesome voice.
Sounds good.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity, and being able to do something like this really helps me keep going. Like, I really appreciate it. So keep doing your thing too.
Thanks.